Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Time Theft Today. What work are you not doing right now?
Yeah, we are joined by two guests who are representatives of the Cal Poly Humboldt student encampments. We have Stinger,
Hi, that's me.
and we have
Hi.
Q or Quill.
Hello.
Hello.
They are just going to be kind of
Thank you so much for
disembodied.
joining us.
Yes, they're just going to be sort of vague, disembodied voices. But please give them a warm welcome for joining, and also for all of the work that Cal Poly Humboldt is doing.
Yes, seriously. We were already saying this before the stream started, but the work y'all have been doing has been, I think, so galvanizing and inspiring for so many other student encampments and for really all of us that want to see this be a moment of actual like radical action for Palestinian liberation and for the end of empire. So we're so grateful for y'all taking the time.
Thank you. We're pretty proud of ourselves, to be honest.
Good. Y'all should be.
Good. Glad to hear that, because that was kind of my first question, was just like, what is the mood right now for y'all? Where are y'all's kind of, as a movement, kind of your heads at in this moment now,
One,
about a week in?
This is a small community, and community I think was a really central focus of what I observed with the organizers. At this point, I think what we're seeing is regrouping and also a lot of care, making sure that everybody's resting and talking, reconnecting with each other. But I would say I don't think that the energy has died down at all. There's still a lot of enthusiasm for this movement. There's still a lot of enthusiasm for working together as a community to see a free Palestine, and to see our institutions really held accountable, not only for their complicity with that, but also in the way that they have responded to student protesters.
yeah.
So there's a healthy amount of energy still, but I will say I think at the moment it's a bit of a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
and a regrouping.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these kinds of movements, they there's strategy and then there's tactics, right? Like there's the moment by moment stuff that you have to do to just like get some ground and protect everybody, and then there's, okay, what are we doing next? And that's a
Yeah.
lot of emotional and intellectual labor, and
Absolutely.
collaboration. So maybe we can start a little bit at the beginning. Now, just for the chat's benefit, we should point out that like we're going to be very careful in how we talk about things here, because we want to keep everybody protected who's doing this work. But
Y'all were
you know,
here. Y'all were here when you had Jersey on, and we did not think that through.
and thankfully, the some of the legal issues regarding blocking the Bay Bridge are moot now, and so that's good.
That's
But
great.
we're at a time where, just last night Joe Biden issued statements about how we need to crack down on dissent, and keep things peaceful, with a constantly changing definition of what peace even is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more and more restrictive. But maybe we could kind of start at the beginning. So again, without anybody claiming any responsibility for anything, or without saying that any of y'all were necessarily there, can you give us just kind of a rough timeline of like the first day, how things kind of started, how the encampment started, kind of being able to take some territory, and camp out, and stake out some buildings, and then issue their demands or something like that.
As far as I know, the intention wasn't actually to um, barricade in the building.
Mm,
The point was to just occupy and sit in there. But then when administration sent the riot police,
mm,
that's when protesters barricaded themselves for their own protection because they were actually sitting peacefully. There were also people sitting peacefully outside, and a lot of the indigenous students were doing like a prayer,
mm.
and riot police started like grabbing them and like pushing them out of their chairs and things like that. So that's when the building actually got barricaded. because the riot police were attacking. And that's kind of how that building got, I guess, occupied.
Yeah, that's my understanding
How
as well.
just on the other side of it, currently, what is the extent of the occupation now?
The occupation has been cleared.
Okay.
So campus is completely closed down to everyone,
Okay.
except for folks with permission. We're not really clear what that means.
Right.
I know there's students living on campus. They're extremely restricted in where they're allowed to be on campus. And actually, in some cases, have to physically leave campus to get to the dining hall safely without facing police aggression.
Right.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying to follow like this as a whole, so it's definitely hard because, you know, police tactics are so national, and our, you know,
Yeah.
the horrible police response has been almost you know, pretty universally bad. So it's hard to know the I might be getting some specifics of Cal Poly confused with other places, but I do know that that was that a lot of the time that there were like arrests that were made of just people, just students that weren't even involved, just walking, trying to like leave their buildings. And so
Yeah, that's been an ongoing problem. I will say, you know, it's interesting following all of these campuses that are uprising in their own ways through either encampments or taking buildings or other demonstrations, and seeing really the difference in response and how that comes back solely onto the shoulders of the administration at those universities. And seeing the difference response from university to university, I think is really telling to see which administrators are more willing to call in the police on their own students versus others. Like on that first night, we had every law enforcement agency in our county called to our campus. There were 6 agencies present. There's never been a police response to that extent on our campus ever. So that was unprecedented and absolutely falls on the shoulders of our administrators and our president.
And there's been, as I understand it, and Jersey has posted a lot about this a lot already, there's a lot of pre-existing history with how the needs of students at Cal Poly Humboldt have not been met, and the number of students who are living in cars or are unhoused in some other way, it just kind of speaks to just how devalued student voices have been on this campus for a long time. So that kind of creates circumstances where there's a lot more incentive and ability for people to organize, I would imagine, because people already know, hey, doesn't seem like administration is on our side.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been the feeling for many years now. The statistic that has been published is that 5% of our students are enrolled with housing insecurity. So either homeless or couch hopping. It's pretty dire up here on a good day.
Yeah, I know that was true in other places too. One thing that really was really shocking and disgusting to me was I've been following Talia Jane on Twitter, who I believe was at Columbia for most of the time and been reporting. And one thing that they confirmed was that there was Columbia, and in New York there was also CUNY, which I believe
colleges,
is like which is like a community college, I believe, right?
Like a city network. So public versus private.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were saying that the Columbia students were charged with misdemeanors and released fairly quickly, while the CNUY students were charged with felonies and stuck in the backlog. The quote, stuck in the backlog, charges not lowered. Last releases weren't until around 5 p.m. today following legal threat, which is, it really just goes to show the way that this is so it's very much a racist and classist and disgusting response in that way, in the same way that, you know, all of the different police responses in this country always are, and, you know, shows how this is like, this is this is the same, you know, it's one fight. It's one fight
Absolutely.
in you know, the fight in Palestine, the fight here. It's, you know, all these cops are all trained in Israel and all that shit. So
I think that's one thing that's so remarkable about student activists right now is that they're making those connections. And that's one
yeah,
thing with the dialogue that's happened. I think this dialogue has been ongoing, but it's been, of course, more present since October 7th. And that dialogue is really highlighting the interconnected nature of these systems of oppression globally. And so, yeah, while we're on our campus, we're talking about a free Palestine, and that was the center of our message. We were also looking at how our institutions are complicit with those same systems of oppression, not only in just funding, but also in the way that they're behaving with their students and within our communities, and as well as the way that we were organizing and making sure that you know, nobody is perfect, but I think I heard of a lot of dialogue happening around making sure that there was equal time for voices to be heard, to center BIPOC voices and concerns, to make sure that there was accessibility within our encampment as much as possible, and being really critical about the way that these systems show up even in our tiny town in Northern California.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of going back to what Maddie was saying about the disparity in which schools get more of a face more of a repressive police attack. I've also seen some kind of just really bad faith, like journalists and, you know, people of a more liberal and centrist kind of disposition sharing stats showing that, oh, you know, these public campuses, they have more people who aren't students involved in these protests, as if that's a bad thing, as if like the like diversity of people recognizing that, first of all, if it's a city college, if it's a state school, that is public land in the first place, so it's not unusual that you would expect a bunch of people would show up there. But also, you know, of course, these schools that are more accessible to the public are going to have more just local people of a variety of backgrounds, including unhoused people, including indigenous groups, including, you know, just people who are concerned and see their solidarity with the Palestinian struggle showing up in these places. And it seems so evident how much more responsive a lot of these public schools have been in using a variety of different tactics too to kind of resist repression, that it really just shows that diversity of thought.
Yeah, I don't really understand the people trying to discount us by saying, oh, there's people who aren't students on campus, because that community support is what really allowed our movement to thrive and continue as long as it did. Like, people were bringing donations and like helping us run our mutual aid kitchen and all these things. Like, the community were the ones who helped us stay there as long as we could. So they're one of the essential parts of a successful movement.
Absolutely.
yeah, I saw people comparing it to the civil rights movement. I guess I don't have a source, but people were talking about how what was it? What's the word that's being used? Like outside agitators. That term specifically comes from the civil rights movement, where like in the South, people were saying like, oh, all of this is not Black people from the South like doing these protests. This is outside agitators like Northern whites coming to stir stuff up. And that's like literally where that term comes from. And it's just the same rhetoric. And it comes from, and it doesn't just come from the right. It comes so much from like, you know, our liberal sort of powers that be, which is really depressing.
Yeah, that kind of dismissiveness really highlights how we try so often to compartmentalize issues and keep it within the communities that are being affected. And I just, one of the reflections that we talked about, we have been talking about since the occupation ended, is how students are not the only ones right now who care about Palestine. Students are not the only ones who are affected by systems of oppression. Um, Having the community there is just really honest. I feel like we are not, this is the location right now. It's student centered because that's the physical location where this is happening. But it really involves so many voices.
Right. Yeah. The university is a starting point because students have led us. They've taken, they've done an amazing, brave thing. And part of how we stand by them is by, certainly as faculty members, doing all that we can to prevent them from being arrested or assaulted, putting our bodies on the line. And then as community members, making sure they stay fed and housed and they have tarps for when it rains. And, I won't speak for either of y'all, but certainly from my perspective, have the means to expand, if there's enough strength to really expand what we are kind of taking back, and in terms of the ability to just disrupt business as usual, whatever that looks like. As I think it was Stinger was saying, from the outset here, it has been on your campus the police who have been escalating things, who came just armed for bear from the outset, and then of course it's twisted and used against you when you have to barricade yourselves for protection against militarized police, as if that's you or some outside bad actor, whatever, escalating things arbitrarily or using violence for no reason. It's just really dismaying how much that is mischaracterized.
Mm-hmm.
And then cast aside as unserious.
Yeah, we kind of started. Devon, you asked about how things started. I wonder if it would be possible to just get like almost like an overview of sort of the timeline of events in general, like as detailed or as kind of loose as y'all feel like describing.
Yeah, I can carefully lay that out. I'm gonna try to stick to what's already in the news.
Yeah, that's a good call.
And definitely
Yeah.
whatever you're not comfortable talking about, we could stay more general too. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, broadly, it was a group of students who were really a very diverse group of students, which was wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see that on our campus generally, although it's really disenfranchised on our campus most of the time, that were exercising a sit-in. Sit-ins are not unusual on our campus. We have a long history of student activism. And their intention was to, perform a sit-in. Police were called almost immediately. And like I had said previously, there was 6 separate agencies showed up. I don't know the exact number of police who were on campus, but it was a lot. It was a shocking sight to see for, again, our tiny town in Northern California. The police ended up getting kettled by the crowd, which was amazing. That was about when the bonk happened with the water bottle, as the police were forced out of the building, and then they were stuck between the building and the growing crowd of students because classes were still happening. This all started around 4 p.m. And there was a standoff for about 6 hours, and then the police eventually left, which was wonderful to see again without further violence at that point. And then from there, the simultaneous encampment and occupation of the building expanded. So I think the community and the community of students really showed up in a desire to really protect their classmates who were inside the building, because we had just witnessed some pretty horrific violence and injury given to our classmates, people we know and love. I think that really mobilized a lot of folks here to like have a desire to be there to keep the police out of the building until dialogue could happen. Overall, the encampment was, when the police weren't there, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Like Stinger said, we had a mutual aid kitchen, we had activities, we had teach-ins, we had many beautiful conversations.
Yeah, a lot of people were sharing in the chat too, the various liberated zones for Palestine they've been able to visit at various campuses across the country. And it's been such a similar experience too at so many of them. That was certainly my experience at Northwestern before things went haywire, but we can talk about that later. But just the amount of resources that people were donating, not just food and water, but they had like a toileting tent set up. They had a lending library for books, clothing for people. I know I've seen photos at Cal Poly Humboldt of students and comrades just washing their clothes and then having them dry out on the line out front, because again, when you already live in poverty, for many of these students, you have a lot of skills of survival that you had to develop, and you also have the generosity that comes with like living under precarity and knowing that we take care of each other.
Absolutely.
And so many beautiful things can arise from people coming together like that.
Yeah, I miss my friends.
Yeah. I have, not from Cal Poly specifically, but I have a couple videos just that I saw of this kind of like sentiment, and like this is somewhat, I'm not sure actually where this one was from, but just like dancing. This person says they're full of joy. They're full of people sharing moments of community, dancing together, sharing meals, laughing. This is from Colombia. Yeah, these programs that I've been seeing, like so much food.
Yeah.
And it sounds like unfortunately some of this stuff didn't happen at Cal Poly just because the police were called so quickly. But it had to become so locked down. But
we still definitely had programming like that for sure for several days, and tons of community food brought in, and
that's so good.
Performances by local artists, even like body workers coming to help us with our stress.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's I know we have a few people who do massage in the chat who are total body work freaks. They're very excited about it at all times. So
maybe these are all
revolution.
These are all these are all ideas for things for people that, because one of the nice things about this is that for us being online, like you probably, if you're in the US, you probably have this nearby. You're very likely to have something like this nearby, and these are the things that you can, ideas for things you can do to bring and ways to be involved.
Yeah, whatever skill sets you have, and we'll get to talking about disability and encampments in a little bit. Even if not everybody has to be somebody who's doing the de-arresting and grabbing people's torsos and pulling them away from the cops. Like, we need those people desperately, but we need people giving massages, bringing posters, making supplies, bringing food, donating tents and tarps and all of those things. Yes, DePaul is having a Palestinian movie night tonight. Yeah, as a fellow Jesuit university in Chicago, I'm very jealous of DePaul for doing way cooler than Loyola, but but Loyola's SJP and comrades like me, we're there as much as we can be. Happy to see it. So can we talk about y'all's demands? Because of course I want to make sure that we center that. Why this all happened? What demands did the students at Cal Poly Humboldt make of the administration?
We had 3 demands that we called the 3 Ds. I said de-escalate, divest, and declare. Sorry, brain fart.
Local Mohawk Council at K Nawake has provided a statement of support for the McGill encampment as it's on their unceded territory. That's great.
Oh,
So
nice.
dope. Yeah. I've seen that at a few campuses. It's all connected. This is a land back struggle in Palestine and on Turtle Island.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm gonna take over from Q for this one because I
Yeah,
read
get
the
it.
statement.
Yeah, do
So,
it. Thank you, Stinger.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
so much for doing that work too. That's such important work.
yeah, when we talk about disability in a little bit, since I'm disabled, this has been like one of the big things that I'm doing.
That's great.
But yeah, so the majority of us had decided that we would vacate the building if administration agreed to these three demands. As evidence, they did not care about our demands.
Yeah.
But yes, so we had one de-escalate. We demand the immediate removal of police from the campus, and we also demanded the immediate re-enrollment of students who had been suspended, and a promise to not suspend, resuspend, or expel any of the student protesters as a result of the accusations that they kind of like had against us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this was, we also were originally thinking like no legal action to be taken against protesters. However, we found out that this is not something that our school administration could do. We would have to, I guess, appeal to like the CSU chancellor, because they were responsible for that.
So
I guess for filing legal action against us.
is that like a governing body that is governs like more than just this your particular school? Is it like a larger?
Yeah, I think it's like the whole CSU system.
Okay.
The chancellor is like for that. So
Got it.
and then our second demand was to divest, and we demand that the Cal Poly Humboldt Foundation commits to an audit and subsequent divestment from any funds related to Israel, Israeli products, or Israeli companies, including those that own factories on stolen Palestinian land. This kind of relates to our land back connection between land back and this movement in particular, because we thought it was just as important that building and development is occurring on stolen land.
Right.
And so we had some people on a finance team, including myself, trying to figure out the funds that the foundation invested into, and I guess like how long it would take for the school to pull out of these funds. So we decided that we would demand the divestment from, at the minimum, these 4 specific mutual funds within the next 6 months. We decided on 6 months because the argument was that the administration argued with us like, oh, we don't even have that much money in these funds. And I was like, okay, if you don't have that much money, then it shouldn't take too long, right?
Yeah.
So there are these 4 specific like mutual funds. TILCX was one of the most important. They have like the top 3 holdings are in Qualcomm, Wells Fargo, and Chubb. Qualcomm is actually an information technology company that does the majority of its technology development in Israel. They do like smartphone chips and tracking technology. And this actually kind of tied into the current Free Congo movement as well, because the smartphone chips rely on minerals that are mined from Congo, which is contributing to the humanitarian crisis there. So that kind of tied into multiple things.
Right.
So that was one of the biggest ones that we were like, oh, that's like definitely one of the ones that we need them to get rid of, that we need them to pull funds from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go over the other three or like all of the
Sure.
like information about the divestment because there's like a lot. We did like research into like which companies are being supported and how exactly they're tied into it. So yeah, that's like all of that right there.
That's so fascinating. I'm sure it was really depressing, but also fascinating to learn about the different connections because they're so. I mean, like, were these connections even like direct, or because I've heard there's some amount of like shell game shit where it's like they're invested in some like investment group that is invested, or is it or is it more direct like?
So this like divestment fund, so like TILCX is like the Cal Poly Humboldt Foundation invests in TILCX, and then TILCX decides where they're gonna distribute those.
Right.
So again, another one of the arguments that administration was telling us when we talked about this demand was like, oh, we don't control where those funds go, and our rebuttal was like, well, but you know where they go, so
Right.
why don't you just not put
Just
them
pull
in
out.
there?
Yeah.
Right.
If you're not happy with where the money in your fund is going, then
Right.
Then don't have them manage it anymore because you do know how they're managing it. So
Right. It's you can't just abdict responsibility like that. Like your money is still going to these places. Yeah.
right.
oh, someone in the chat talked about how pretty much every processor is designed in Israel. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and how Israel is actually pretty much directly tied to what's happening in the Congo right now as well. Yeah, which is part of why we're trying not to buy new technology, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to address what the person said in the chat right now.
I feel very proud. My phone is, like I said, my phone is broken, but for the first time I bought iFixit repair kit, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm gonna replace my phone screen. Mostly because it was very doable. It was an easy, more doable fix.
Well, you're very capable with that kind of stuff. But
yeah, not that everybody has to do that shit, but huge recommendation. iFixit is great. They have great they like you buy the part and then they not only give you the part but like the entire toolkit to go with it. Very cool stuff. If you're somebody that like has the ability to do that, it's at least check it out if you break your phone or some piece of technology like it.
Yeah, fight the planned obsolescence as best you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a lot of research into the specifics of their financial holdings, and I'm wondering, Stinger, if it was possible in part to discover this much info because it's a public university. I would imagine it would be a lot harder for a private school for this information to be. Is there a little bit more out there because of that as a starting point?
I'm not sure exactly because I did most of the information for TILCX, but another person on the financial team was the one who I guess found all these investments. So I'm not exactly.
There was at one point a moment of a fairly soft effort from administration to like quote unquote negotiate with us, and one of the things that they offered as a rebuttal to this request of ours, this demand, was actually the names of these groups. They're like, see, this is it. This is our whole. This is all the financials. Thinking that they were being smart. And then from there is when students and community dug into the details of these holdings.
I see.
Wow.
So they're trying to make this look a little bit more innocent than it actually is, basically. Okay,
yeah, we also do. Sorry,
no, please.
Sorry, I saw someone in the chat was saying that that private schools added D for declare, and yes, we also have D for declare.
Yep.
Which I figured that's what you were about to say. Sorry.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, your third demand.
So number 3 is declare in solidarity with universities across the globe and for all Palestinian people, including their martyrs and refugees. We demand a ceasefire statement from Cal Poly Humboldt calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Palestine. And we encourage all other California state universities and universities of California to do the same.
And this shit is so easy. Like,
No, I don't know if you know this, but the community college in this city as well, College of the Redwoods, actually released a ceasefire statement without even having like an encampment, like 100% before like our school even like considered it. And we were all like, dude, if it's so easy for the community college to do it without even having like this big occupation happening, why can't you do it?
Yeah, this is something that university administrators should love because they love sending out a statement, like
Yeah.
they love making a little press release and not doing anything else. Like, let's start here at least.
Yeah, seriously.
So to not even do the symbolic gesture,
Not even
really
do the
shows you
land
the level of
acknowledgement. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, it's not enough, but like, yeah, it does show how cowardly they are at this point
Absolutely.
to not even.
Our faculty senate did declare a statement for ceasefire. So that was one small step, at least in solidarity with the faculty. But yeah, we're not going to give up on this one.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
free.
Yes.
It takes
Literally.
us 3 minutes.
It's literally so
Yes.
easy. You probably have a person that you pay that it's their job to like send out press releases. Like, just make them do it.
Yeah. So what was the we kind of got into this a little bit already, but what was the administration's response to hearing these demands? Have they come to any discussion table, or are they just still continuing to be punitive and nothing else? What's their response been?
Ha 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 ha. They did not. Yeah, they were like, we're trying to have good faith negotiations with you guys. And then like less than 24 hours later, they were like, also, we're sending the cops. And we were all like, so are you trying to have a discussion with us? And they said that we were like really resistant to, what they were offering. And our kind of rebuttal was like, but you're offering literally none of the things we asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was their offer?
On top of that, nothing. They submitted, or they released a letter, a long ass letter,
Of excuses, pretty much.
that went demand by demand, saying how exactly they couldn't do anything about it. And so they were like, look, this is our negotiation. We negotiated with you because we wrote this letter and we addressed every single one of your demands. We addressed them.
By saying we won't do it.
We see your demands. We hear your demands.
We will not.
It was incredibly insulting, to be totally honest. It was infantilizing, and they never once took us seriously as adults, as scholars, as human beings with independent thought. It was really frustrating to see. All the while gaslighting us, telling us that they wanted to meet our demands. They wanted to discuss these things with us. Without doing any of that.
Yeah.
That sounds very similar to what Loyola has been doing to the demands from their SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, for their the condescension, particularly regarding divestment. There was a town hall a couple of weeks ago where the people in charge of the financials with Loyola were basically telling the students, y'all don't understand how index funds work. It's really complicated. You invest in the entire stock market, and so it's impossible for us to pick and choose which stocks. Again, just really condescending, acting like their hands are completely tied, and using that also as an excuse to not disclose, like, oh, it's too complicated, basically, and treating students like they're being naive by demanding something better than this shit.
Yeah.
One of their complaints, when we first released like the, I guess, the very first time we released these demands was like, oh, you guys keep providing moving goalposts, which is part of why we released this statement was like, okay, well, here's what we want then.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a really set thing of what we want, here's the statement telling you exactly what we want. And then they were like, well, well, we can't do that though. Like, thank you. Like Q said, this whole email was like going point by point and being like, well, this is why we're not going to do that. Anyway, since we negotiated, quote unquote, negotiated with you, get off campus.
Oh my God.
And we were like, well, no, because nothing, like, the whole point was so these would be met, and you did not acquiesce to even the most basic of these demands.
What did they say about about declaring a ceasefire? Like, what was their oh, we can't do this because it's illegal? Like, it's too complicated?
Oh my God, I'm gonna find the email right now. I swear. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's always this this double speak in terms of how they respond to demands, whether it's administration, government, whatever. This reminds me of Occupy Wall Street so much, this entire movement, where people criticize Occupy for not having specific enough demands. But then as soon as you hear their specific demands, oh, it's not feasible. Oh, it's ridiculous. You know, oh, you're asking too much. It's just a delaying tactic.
Yep.
And change is uncomfortable, and they didn't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The hateful graffiti is so funny.
Is that a thing that
like, there's hateful graffiti occurring, and then they wanted us to narc on ourselves.
Oh my God, to like say who did that?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you guys heard about the checkout table, but like that was really funny.
No, what is this?
No, what was that?
Oh my God, they were like, okay, this was Friday, I think.
Yeah.
From 2 to 4, and then they expanded it to 2 to 5. They were like, oh, if you go to this table and provide us our information and check out without resisting, then we will not immediately arrest you.
Oh my God.
But you might still get in trouble.
Yeah, like their exact words were like, we won't arrest you now, but later. it was so. And so we were all making fun of it, and someone made like a meme about it where they were like, what if we kissed at the self-narc table?
No self-snitching.
Like, no one's gonna do this. Like, oh, I found the email with the responses to the.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to read parts of that? They're made.
Yeah, yeah. Especially why they didn't declare. Supposedly the reasons why they can't.
So, we were talking about how so for one, disclose and divest. Like, we were talking about how they were like, oh, well, it's only a little bit of money and, like, it's indirect, so, like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
See, they were like, our estimates put the potential indirect investment in the areas that are asked about at less than 1% of the investment portfolio. Of more than $51 million. I'm like, 1% of $51 million is still a lot of money in my opinion, but okay.
Yeah.
And then
it's not very much money, but also we can't. It's impossibly hard to do this. Like it's so
right.
Like...
The double speak there. Which is it?
And then there was also a desire for the school to not have study abroad programs with Israeli universities. Oh no, this email was sent out to like everybody. Sorry, there was someone worried about it. No, this email was sent out to like everybody in the school, so it's okay.
We've been getting hella emails every day.
God.
I'm sure. That's their favorite tool at universities is the emails.
God.
And then, drop charges against the student organizers and halt the harassment by law enforcement. And then
University policy and conduct violations will follow established procedures, and there will be consequences for actions that violate policy or law. However, students who would like to evacuate the building and support efforts to clear the building will have their actions considered as a mitigating factor within those processes.
So not even amnesty,
Wow.
not even amnesty,
No.
Blimey.
not even.
We'll go easy on you. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Probably not.
And then they act surprised when it doesn't work. Like, oh, they're okay. The response about declare was like, Cal Poly Humboldt is committed to social justice and the graduation pledge to guide everyone's social and environmental consequences of their decisions. We are supportive of a peaceful and just world, which affords the opportunity for all human beings to flourish and achieve their potential. That's all they said.
What?
Okay.
What? That doesn't even make
We
sense.
support peace. They support peace, which of course means the Palestinians just lying down and taking it. An end to settler colonial aggression, right?
Yeah. Can we let's that brings me to I don't think there's anybody really in this chat that this is pretty in community. I don't think there's anybody in this chat that believes this stuff. But I think the one thing that I am so infuriated about this whole discussion is that the narrative is still that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. It is absolutely wild to me that this can survive with so much, especially so much Jewish-led fucking protest, that so many Jewish fucking people getting arrested for protesting this.
Yeah.
So I was curious, just in case that there was anyone who is watching this who is maybe on the fence or has some of those beliefs, what I don't know. I don't even know. It's such a ridiculous thing, but did you see any anti-Semitism in these encampments?
I can emphatically say no. All of our students are critical thinkers. They were coming at this with a lot of critical thought and a lot of care for humanity. We had Jewish and Palestinian students who were represented in various aspects of student organizing. It's a baseless claim. It's an appallingly baseless claim.
Yeah.
The only place where I have witnessed anything at the campuses I've been visiting throughout the last couple of weeks, it's always been the Zionist counter protesters who use some of that language as towards themselves in a self-victimizing way, and to muddy the waters and confuse things. I was kind of curious if y'all had, in addition to being attacked by the police, a lot of our encampments here have been attacked by people wearing either Israeli flags, or they're wearing American flags, or both. Camps have been attacked in the early morning by Zionist counter protesters. I don't know if that was something that you guys had to deal with as well.
There was only a couple of agitators throughout the week, thankfully, at our jail support rally. The morning that the raid happened, there were several Zionist agitators across the street shouting profanities and insults at us. But otherwise, no, we didn't really have to deal with that too much here.
That's good.
And that is so low to show up during jail support after people have already been arrested. And it kind of shows the cowardice of we're not going to actually come to your encampment because we know we don't have the numbers. But once you're already in a low position, we're going to yell at you from across the street.
Oh, there was definitely low numbers. Maximum people, the maximum counter protesters, maybe 4 people across the street during the jail support thing. And it was how do you not see that maybe there may be something wrong with the fact that there's only 4 of you.
Yeah, and
right.
We could get we'll leave the broader what has been happening more broadly at these encampments till a little bit later, but these it's so clear that these like they're actively being funded, and they're still like the places that they're large. It's like, oh yeah, that's because they were like had huge fucking GoFundMe's to fund them and shit. But anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was looking at Q sent to us the checkout, the protester self-snitch checkout. Um, I know, and I think this was also Cal Poly Humboldt, probably some other schools as well, where they were pulling out people's private personal belongings from the dorms and like leaving them out to try
Wow.
and force students to. And y'all can correct me wrong if this wasn't Cal Poly Humboldt, but just leaving people's stuff out from campus housing on the lawn to then try and swoop in and arrest any students who tried to get their stuff back.
Mhm. I hadn't heard of that here, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it might have been somewhere else.
It's been shady though.
Yeah.
That defines the response for sure.
Yeah. Maybe we could talk a little bit about just kind of like tactical, again, speaking in a very broad way. Like I think we've seen a lot of really cool innovation come out of the work that students at Cal Poly Humboldt have done. We've already talked about the bonking water jug, and
let's actually take a second and talk about that specifically, and then get what, because that, I mean, that's
yeah, it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So here's a little bit longer video, just the original video that I thought was wildly impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the techniques. So the really wild part about this, and this is true all over. You know, you talked about pushing the cops back. I'm not sure if this is the moment that you were talking about, or if there was that was even a separate moment. But it's just so wildly impressive. Nationally, all over, the ways in which students are organizing and you know, like not only resisting but pushing cops back, pushing cops out of buildings, but even publicly open spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The using the lids of dumpsters as like banner holders and reinforcements.
I think this is
Here we go. Here's a bonk moment. Yes. Oh my god. Oh, it's so good.
The fearlessness.
Yeah,
It's so strong.
I thought that this video was actually interesting too, because it's like, yeah, the bonk is funny, but I actually feel like it really worked. Like this dude, dude, like look at him. He overextends. Like, and that he absolutely fucking overextends.
Mm-hmm.
And then and it's really, I mean, this video is rough because it is really violent. It's clear people got hurt by the cops. But then their fucking zealousness. I mean, he's wearing a fucking helmet. Like, I mean, that thing, that fucking water bottle clearly would hurt if you weren't like wearing a helmet. But he's wearing a helmet. It couldn't have hurt that much. But it like so is like the cops are so small mind, like just so ego driven, and so like it is like, even despite all of their training in fucking militarized, you know, in Israel and in fucking militarized cop cities, like they still are so fucking petty. And and so yeah, it's so clear that fucking they overextend because of that, because he was made small, and then they are fucking pushed fully to just go through the rest of this. They are fully pushed out by the end of this fucking video.
So impressive. So badass. Using every tool at your disposal.
Yeah. I do have it on small town authority that the cop involved in that bunk is being ruthlessly teased.
Great.
Good.
Demoralize them.
Deserved.
Yeah.
Oh, I just said deserved.
Deserved. Very deserved. Yeah, because like the authoritarian like mindset is so motivated by fear, and so when they, you know, that's why they're so strapped like a tank all of the time. So anything that challenges their authority at all, it makes them feel so unsafe and small. And it can be so
Some
effective.
interesting psychology in that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a video, and yeah, I think this shit is important for protesters to be aware of. This is from the Baltimore Orioles posted this, and somebody hits it into the stand, and look at this cop. He fucking goes for his gun. A baseball comes up
Oh my
on him.
God.
He reaches for the gun.
Oh my god.
He reaches, and look, he gets
So
scared,
fucked up.
reaches for his gun for a baseball.
Whoa.
I would not be in the
Whoa.
baseball game in any vicinity to that person. I'd be so scared to be close
Right?
to Papa during that.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and that's how people get killed. Like that's their training. Like it's
Dude, the
so
amount of
deeply cowardly.
unwell. Yeah, the amount of unwell that you have to be that afraid of everything,
Mhm.
and react with violence with regards to your fear. That's wild.
Yeah, and that just like it just again connects to that perpetual like victim mentality that you see in a lot of evangelical Christians who pretend to be persecuted all the time. The narratives around
Yep.
Israel as like a genocidal government, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My research focuses a lot around issues of transformation and ontological insecurity, and those are like my big college words. But I'm so fascinated by this like confrontation of fear, specifically with ideology, and how it makes us respond in these like really extreme ways.
Yeah. It distorts reality to such an extreme degree. Hello, Jersey. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
And
Hi,
thank you for
Jersey.
documenting so much of all of this, everybody. Friends of the show will already know Jersey, but
we love Jersey so much. So proud that they're alum.
Yeah, really happy about it. It's super cool.
Jersey said, "This is so gay." They're letting gay people on the internet now.
They're letting gay. When did this happen?
My bad.
So yeah,
Queer
so-
people aren't supposed to stand for Palestine.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Oh, thank you for following Pixel Therapy Pod. Spencer, you're awesome. Good to see you.
Corvid,
Everybody,
but
like-
Morvid, I got caught. Rip. I hope you're doing okay. That if by that you mean that you got arrested or kicked out of your college, we're
No,
here
I
for
think
you.
they were caught as a gay person.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fair.
That's good.
Gay person identified.
People these days.
People these days be gay. It's weird.
Yeah, so wild.
So I finally did find how many fucking tabs? This is okay, so just to show y'all what I'm doing, these are all windows. These are all fucking windows that each have like a shitload of tabs on. I've tried to organize them in a way that I could actually fucking like find the shit that I'm trying to show, but it was a lot. But here's here's the bonk song, because Jesus fucking Christ.
Everybody's getting into hyperpop these days. Even the bonk jug.
Bong, bong, bong. That's how you should treat the cup. Make them take more than 5 L's. That's how you beat the cup. Bong, bong. Do you want this jug or not? Comrade, go hard with the jug. I call him Juggernaut. Cal Poly going too off with big old plastic jugs, just like a boob job. They wanna know what I think when I was first. Thought that popped into my head is this is bunker. Bong, 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 what the students say. From Columbia Uni all the way to LA. Let us unify and rise in the coolest way. Motherfuck 12, free Palestine.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
It's not a clip.
Yes. Yeah, forget Sabrina Carpenter. This is the song of the summer.
Yeah, Jersey, you said there's a full version? Can you
Oh my
link that in
god,
the
I didn't
chat?
know that. I didn't
Yeah.
know there was a
Oh.
full version now.
You can buy it on Bandcamp.
Oh hell yes!
Are you
And they'll
serious?
actually get
That's
some money
so
from that
funny.
too.
It's so good.
Yes. Yeah, as Pixel Therapy said, use what you have, and I think that's been such a lesson
Yes.
across the campuses. People again using those same jugs to help contain the water sprinklers on the lawns, so they don't get forced off the lawns by campuses.
Yes.
Obviously, at Cal Poly Humboldt, using lots of desks and chairs, to block an entrance. Just
Yeah.
using the
Yes.
environment.
This is a lot of people there are the generation of people that went through, like, were in high school during so much of this more modern school shooting stuff where people had to do fucking
Active shooter trainings and things like that.
yeah, and
Right.
learn to barricade their classrooms and stuff like this. And it's like beautiful and sad in the way that, like, we've taught kids to barricade themselves in because of the failures of the US police state and the failures of protecting our students against school shooters. And then that those same tactics are now being and now have to be used against those same cops when they're when they're the ones bringing guns and violence into the campuses of these students. I guess I was curious if y'all agreed with that, or were are knew of that being, like, that connection being made by anybody on the ground. Or
Yeah, I definitely heard conversations that followed that same, line of observations. And again, like this group of students making so many connections to their lived experience and to what they're seeing in the rest of the world.
yeah,
Absolutely. Using what you have, which again, it's so fucked up that so many of, especially the generations under us, had to go through these traumatic fucking active shooter trainings. But then once you have that information, and if you know what the cops have been trained to do, then you can start pivoting around it. And that's why we see the cops now starting to be the ones that get kettled.
Oh
yes,
which is so fucking metal.
I think that's one of the things that's really powerful about taking buildings as student movements. One of the things that I heard reflected on multiple times was how the tone that administration was using and continues to use in their various daily emails to the campus community is a tone of hostage negotiation. Instead of protest negotiation, which I think those two tones are very different things. And at first, I think several of us were like, that's weird. Like, why are they talking to us like that? But then as we continued to, be critical and thinking about the action that was taking place on our campus, taking a building in today's capitalistic society where property has more rights than humans, in many ways, from that lens, from that standpoint, it sort of was a hostage negotiation because we had taken a building hostage. And so I think, even looking, like you said, using what you have, it's really interesting to sort of lean into those points of power dynamics in a capitalistic society to use as the means of protest and escalation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you put it so well there, that they see the property as the hostage. That's the person that they care about, is their investments, their real estate.
Right.
And that's what a lot of universities basically are just glorified real estate firms in terms of where they make their money.
Yeah.
that's how they behave, and the number of not just students who are struggling with housing insecurity, but the housing insecurity that they create from buying up surrounding areas, driving up property values, driving people out of their homes, and things like that. It's a settlement
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the Ann Arbor area, and I know that like U of M owns most of the property in the city. Like it's so I don't know. I'm sure it's a lot. That's true of a lot of college towns where they
Yeah.
have so much power because they just physically own most of the city.
I just kind of wanted to talk about like using the environment because that has been such a deciding factor, it seems like, in how different campuses encampments play out and the resistance to it. Because if I correct me if I'm wrong, but of the understanding that it was eventually became multiple buildings that were interconnected at Cal Poly Humboldt that students were holding. Is
Yeah,
that true?
it's complicated. One of the buildings was left open.
Mhm.
It was never locked by campus. And so we used the bathrooms
Mhm.
and the conference room in there for our meetings. But I think we would argue that we had not taken that building, although that was conflated, that we had barricaded. It was never barricaded. It was always open. Um, I, I think you can look at multiple ways, but yes, it was left open, and from what I understand, it was taken advantage of that opportunity.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a big
But
distinction for sure.
I think the
Yeah.
important thing to point out is that the response of the administration was to shut down campus. That was their immediate response, and
Right.
so all of classes were closed for several days. Campus was still open, but classes were online. And then as of Friday, they closed campus. And then as of Saturday, they closed campus, which means that police became present on campus more. They put up barriers to all the entrances to campus and stationed police there and threatened arrest if anyone was on campus who did not have permission. So, like, the students, were encamped. The students were in Siemens Hall. Um, the administration themselves were the ones who closed campus, and it was nothing. It was not a thing that students advocated ever for. In fact, we really advocated for classes to remain open, but
Right.
their response was really dramatic.
Mm, yeah. Once again, they're escalating. They're acting like students using their own campus and their own campus buildings is this
Yeah.
huge threat that needs to be responded to by ending every student's access to resources in
Yeah.
their education. Yeah.
Well, and again, like this is not new student behavior on our campus. In fact, Siemens Hall had been occupied previously in 2018, and so it's the response from our president Tom Jackson right now was what was truly unprecedented about this moment, and escalated it to the extent that it was escalated.
Do you know what that previous sit-in was, what the goals were and what the response was by any chance?
Yeah, I could pull that up. We had part of the research that has been done by the broader community, campus community, has been looking at the history of student protest. Yeah, so this article is saying debt and tuition during the budget cuts walkout protest. But I'll get this sent over to you. The Native American Forum on campus was also another occupation back in 2015. That one lasted for 35 days.
Wow.
And the police were never called on those students. So again, like I really feel strongly about highlighting like the mismanagement of this incident, the unnecessary escalation of our president and administration. When it came to the response to students who really were just engaging in peaceful protest, civil disobedience, which is our constitutional right, and also
Absolutely.
well within the culture and history of the students on this campus.
Yeah, I think it's been something I've been thinking about nationally, and a thing that I've heard that this, it is not unusual for people to protest in this way. What is unusual is this response, and not that it is unusual in general, but it feels like this is a thing that hits close to home for, I don't know if it's the university establishment specifically, or just the larger sort of like liberal establishment, that this feels like it is it's such a it is such a thing we are so not allowed to protest about or talk about. And I guess I don't have a specific thought of, I wonder why, it feels like it really,
isn't it like Islamophobia? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like that seems like a big factor.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, and I think it really fits like in the time that we're seeing right now of like increased surveillance and oppression, and everything from the cost of groceries
right.
to our reproductive freedoms. Like they're all really tightly connected, and what we're seeing with like the repression of free speech, I think is something that we really need to be paying close attention to right now. It's really scary. Especially like what Joe Biden said, I think last night, or days are all blurring together right now. But yeah, the response, the way that this is being framed by people who aren't even really taking a moment to read beyond like the clickbait headlines as like violent and racist and hateful towards Jewish people, I think is a critical moment for us to pay attention to our right of free speech as another right that is getting slippery.
Yes. Yeah. I have a few things here. This was a really good example. The Los Angeles Times had their headline, "After violent protests at UCLA, UC president launches investigation into response." Was changed from UCLA cancels classes after counter-protesters violently attack pro-Palestinian camps. Like the changing from, the accurate reporting of counter-protesters being violent to there were violent protests in general, and putting that, and there's just so much of a really skewed and response and a manufacturing of consent in the way that this is being reported. And like you said, Joe Biden's response is it's just one small clip. This is part of his remarks. I guess I don't have the clip of what I remember he said something about, basically he called these violent protests, and someone compared it to what Trump's disgusting remarks during Charlottesville, where he said there are good people on both sides, which is, obviously frankly disgusting. But they pointed out he said that there were good people on our side that were good. Like he was at least comparing them like at an equal level, where Biden's remarks were that, clearly only disparaging the pro-Palestinian protesters. But I don't have that specific quote, but I do have this quote that where
President, have the protests forced you to reconsider?
Have you seen the people comparing it to January 6th? That's some of the craziest takes.
Yeah.
I'm like, now that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even realize the video was played. I guess.
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
No.
I just talked.
You're good. Yeah, this is just him saying, have the protests forced you to reconsider any of the policies with regard to the region, and him just saying no.
Right.
It's really, we've talked about this a little bit on this show. Like Biden is not just a, a representative of the the opinion of the Democratic Party. He is more than that. He is a and this is shown by so many of his statements, not only currently but also going back historically, that he is a virulent Zionist. You know, this is an ideological thing. This is not some sort of this isn't just what is it, realpolitik, you know. This is what we need to do for the region, which is also disgusting.
Right.
But this is so clearly an ideological hill he is unwilling to even consider. He believes what is happening is right.
Yeah.
It's so clear.
Well,
right.
Oh, sorry. And a deeply capitalist hill.
Right.
Which, like, Jersey shared the quote in the chat about Biden defending our agreements, our allyship with Israel early on as like of enormous foreign interest for us financially.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is something that he is not going to move on. And any hopes of like appealing to the conscience of the Democratic Party is just, it's just not reality based at this point.
Who said nonviolent protest is predicated on your oppressor having a conscience?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that is why, you know, we cannot be, like, I think so much of the response has been that this is a violent protest, which is so untrue unless you consider, you know, violence against, violence against property.
It's a protest speaking to violence.
Right.
And it is violent in the way that there are protesters who have been met with violence.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I love this image. Columbia University President Manoush Shafiq walks past the damaged door and just her grieving this window.
Not the door.
Not the door pane. Not the window pane.
Yeah.
But this whole thing is being framed, especially upsetting when it is from, you know, the president of the United States, but being framed as violent when the violence has been from the police and from counter protesters.
I'm gonna get canceled for this. Maybe not.
That's our show, baby.
No.
we love getting we love having hot takes. We haven't got canceled yet, so
it's just, I don't, even if our protests were violent, I don't see how that's even comparable to what's happening.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Our breaking property or bonking a police officer on the head is a response to, as Corvid but Morvid just said, violence in response to ending genocide is justified, and resistance is justified, and oppressed people are allowed to be angry and resist.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our university president did an interview with the local newspaper, and he's quoted saying that the students who are in Siemens Hall are not there for noble causes. They are criminals.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wild.
They're gonna accuse you of not being peaceful as soon as you're not protesting. If you're not saying the things that they don't want you to say, like, you know, I was carrying a "From the River to the Sea" poster, and somebody was in my face saying that, you know, I should be arrested for hate speech, right? Like, so destroying property, occupying property, using language they don't like, you're going to be accused of violence anyway. So something like destroying a weapons manufacturer or burning down a police precinct, these are things people do in resistance of incredible militarized violence.
Yeah.
And we're not the first ones. Like, this is not new. This kind of resistance is not new.
Yeah.
And everybody's acting like it's brand new.
This is the only way that change has, basically the only way that real change has happened for, you know, in in our culture at all, or even globally. I mean, this is why we have the weekend is anarchist rioting.
Yeah.
This is why, and protest is the goal of protest is pressure, right? I've seen so much like the comparison of like the reason you protest is to show how many people you have. It is inherently a threat. It is inherently we have this many people that believe this thing, and we will we can do something with that. And I think that I'm really glad to see like ways of finding ways of putting real pressure on the state and
Yes.
and like the sort of organizations of power in general. Like that is what we need to be doing, is finding ways to put real pressure on this system. And it's been so good to see, people using this tried and true method of sit-ins and occupation to do that. So
One of the texts that I sent in the chat was a letter, just for, because I'm a nerd, a little bit of history. Siemens, Cornelius Siemens was the president of then Humboldt State College.
wow.
And this is a letter that he sent to President Nixon, sort of calling him out for the way that he was responding to students protesting on campus. And it's just a really stark contrast to what we're seeing in response from administrators today.
Jersey said something Humboldt and all campuses are doing beautifully is always bringing it back to Palestine. The why.
Yeah.
The police repression in the U.S. and Europe are just proving the global impact of Zionism. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
A giant dump on their own legacy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Siemens would have supported us. That's my take.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Is this person related to the Siemens company?
That's a great question.
Because I know that's one of the
They're
biggest.
BDS. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like a really big BDS.
Oh no. That's a good
I
question.
don't think
Okay.
they're the same people.
It's
but-
just a coincidence. Okay, I thought you were gonna say because you said Siemens and I was like, oh shit, they're fucking their fucking shit goes back far with Israel, but
Yeah.
might just
No,
be
okay,
a coincidence.
Here's the letter, and I'm loving the old typewriter. President Nixon, as president of Humboldt State College, I implore you to consult with the mainstream of our responsible college youth and to attempt an understanding of their widespread, deep-seated desire for peace. The Cambodian decision is causing the most serious and disturbing concern and dismay. Personally, I am disillusioned and disappointed that the war has widened instead of coming to a close. The college community now needs fully justifiable acts and assurances to maintain or regain its faith in national leadership and to dispel its feeling of futility.
Wow,
That's
amazing.
great.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah, you would
Cornelius
not see a
Siemens.
college administrator saying this today.
No,
at
hell
all.
no.
If
Taking
only.
any
All right.
stance. Like, it is May 1970, for those that asked on that statement.
Yeah, just in talking about the response, the way in which so many people have basically been like, this is not not helping. You're being violent. And there was this great post that was a question Gallup asked in 1961 about what has been remembered as one of the most iconic and effective protest movements in American history. Do you think sit-ins at lunch counters, freedom buses, and other demonstrations by Negroes will hurt or help the Negro chances of being integrated in the South? And 57% of people said hurt. Like, this is the people, like, people have no conception at the time of it is. This is a thing that I've been seeing a lot, and I've been meaning to bring up on this show, is just a much more general thing, is just that every war and every protest movement is correct, and every anti-war protest and every popular protest is correct and was on the right side of history, except for the one that is happening now, is the liberal
Yeah,
point of view.
absolutely.
Right. Yeah, there's this constant forgetting of history under liberalism where you
Right.
have to tell this lie of these bad things happened and we won't explain why they happened because that would get into the systemic forces that are still here today. But thank God we know better now.
Dr.
Corvid but
King
morbid
and
was mentioned.
Dr. King ended racism, and then he lived happily ever after.
Right.
And we
He
never
didn't
had
start
racism
venturing
again.
into labor affairs or anything like that, you know. Corvid but morbid mentioned, I want to draw attention to protests against the Vietnam War. Those
Yeah.
did work and made a statement. I think also, though, we do want to say that Vietnam didn't end because of American protesters. It ended because of the resistance in Vietnam.
Yeah.
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 It was.
Thank
it
you for
was a,
saying that.
yeah. And that is what we're seeing today too. That Israel is, for all of the evil that they are doing and the massive genocide that they are attempting here. And sorry for the sirens in the background. They are fighting at a disadvantage because they don't know the land and they're trying to root out an entire people, and that is a very difficult, costly thing to do, especially when you have a really strong, principled resistance, which they do have in Palestine, and what we're trying to be a part of in our own way over
Yeah.
here. And that is how these colonial ventures lose, is because you're always operating out of a disadvantage when you're trying to take over someone else's land and you don't know it, and they're underground, dismantling their apparatus at every turn.
And you don't love it. There's that principled aspect really comes from deep love and deep care, and I hope that's what that's what we are remembered for, is our deep love and care for our fellow humans. And that's why we saw so many students willing to risk so much. And I hope that that's also the case on other college campuses right now, that we're showing up with deep love and deep care for our fellow humans in the support of their deep love and their deep care for their lands and their history and their culture and their religions. It's hard to fight that. It's hard to fight against that. Absolutely.
And
it's so disgusting the way that people's response have been. Why do you care? Like, it is there that there has been a specific kind of, like, I would say across the aisle pundit of, like, this is, why are you doing this for people halfway around the world or whatever? And it is, I can't even.
This motherfucker's worldview isn't based on love and compassion for others.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Look at this motherfucker. Exactly. It's like, what are we? How? Like, literally, how can you think like that? How is your fucking heart so calcified? Oh,
yeah. It's the sickness we have right now.
Over 42,000 Gazans murdered, over 1,500,000 children. That's why no universities left in Gaza, I think, is such, especially for this college-led protest movement, is such a good.
Yeah. They're trying to destroy Palestinians' future and their history with the mosques and ancient sites that they've bombed, with the hospitals. There's not one hospital that hasn't been attacked in the Gaza Strip. So that affects the record keeping. I know everybody who's here already knows all of this already, but
I know,
like, they're trying to attack on every level. The means of documenting that Palestinians were always there, the means of keeping track of how many of them are being killed right now, and their ability to learn and do research and scholarship and journalism for the future too. So, yeah.
Jersey asks a great question. What was the most beautiful moment, if that moment is okay to talk about?
There were many.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There was a moment. I mean, there were so many. It's really hard to choose, to be totally honest. But there was a moment the day. So the building was occupied on Monday. Tuesday night, the community came to campus and there were a couple hundred people there. There was music, bands came and played, there was dancing. It was so joyful. It was such a joyful evening. I think it was really before a lot of fear settled in. I think there was a healthy amount of understanding what our campus had gotten into, as far as like, especially given the police response the night before, but just seeing the joy and the togetherness and the willingness to be there, to physically be in that space, that, you know, had an ongoing threat of increased violence by the police, was really beautiful. Like that kind of resiliency was really, really beautiful to watch. And like I point to that night because it was kind of like the biggest party night. It was such a celebration that night, but I think there were so many moments like that every single day that happened where joy was really brought in and highlighted, and community support and love was really prioritized, and um, it it felt really safe and really beautiful when the cops were not there.
I think one of my favorite ones personally was how we were all feeding each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like someone, and it was really funny because at some point someone literally whipped out like a mini grill and started like making like burritos for people,
Hell
and
yeah.
like
Mm,
just like the food being a love language and making sure each other are like nourished, and just the whole thing in general is like we were all there together, and that was beautiful to me.
That's so beautiful.
Oh, can I share one more?
Oh,
We
of
had
course.
please.
so the I think, you know, it's on the news. There was vandalism on our campus. There was one evening that some spray paint was discovered on a bench. And I'm Stinger, if you remember the name of the person who this bench was dedicated to, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I do know that they were a scholar in the study of genocides. And when our community discovered the spray paint on that bench, people came out from the community, from the protesters, to clean off that bench and to highlight and honor their legacy of scholarship and activism that they brought to our campus. And I think that also goes to show like the care that it looks pretty intense in the videos and the pictures, but really there was so much care about this place. This is our home.
Yeah.
The protesters repeatedly said that, you know, when this ended, when the demands were met, we would clean it up. We'd put everything back. We would paint the walls with glee, with gladness. Like we wanted to show that reverence to this place, because it is our home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful, and that really goes to show how dire the situation is when you do start having to tear things apart and build barricades. That like this is a place, this is not done out of contempt for these
Mhm.
spaces, it's done out of love.
Yeah.
Trans Peaks had a really good question. I'd love to know about any liberal students trying to peace police and co-opt the movement and how that was handled. Certainly that's been a struggle we've seen at some other campuses. Was there ever any tension of trying to make sure, let's stay on message here, let's not fold, any of that kind of stuff?
There were a few. I don't think we really had problems with like folding. I know there were people unhappy about. There were a few people who were unhappy about how we said we would leave Siemens if the demands were met. But we never said we would stop protesting. We just said we'd leave that one building. So I'm
Right.
kind of, there was like some like annoyance about that from other people, and like we had to have like a discussion about that. And then but I don't think there was like co-opting at all. And that could be because of what someone else referred to as a dangerous affinity for anarchism.
The real heads were there, is what
Hell
you're saying. The
yeah.
real ones came through.
The
Yeah.
real ones were there. No, we
Yeah.
really stuck to, the students really stuck to, horizontal, non-centralized leadership and consensus, and really focusing on being autonomous actors, but always coming back to the group and making sure, really self-regulating to make sure that your actions are not hurting others. So there was a lot of concerted effort to not police each other's behavior. There was a lot of conversation. There's always going to be conflict when you get people together, but I was very impressed to see the willingness to enter difficult conversations when there was disagreement, and the amount of healthy disagreement that did happen, but ultimately was resolved through discussion and consensus. So, yeah, pretty tight knit little community up here.
Yeah, Jersey Noah said, if we haven't already, just say Humboldt has more houseless students than any other university in the U.S. and resourcefulness of impoverished people. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, but I think that is definitely a factor here as well. I would imagine these are not people that are, a huge portion of these of people are not privileged, in the way
And geographically, we're really isolated also. It's, a good 5-hour drive from here to San Francisco. We're about 100 miles to the border of Oregon. It's mostly just trees and mountains between us and everyone else. So I think there's already a sense of solidarity that can be accessed in this community, because we do sort of feel like we're out here alone.
Yeah, it could so easily go the other way, but
it does
it's
sometimes.
it's so beautiful to see, like, just because suburban areas can be such repressive environments, but I think it's just because y'all have such strong like class consciousness, it seems like, and have such a robust history of doing this work, that like you stay political and not repressed, which is amazing.
Yeah, Jersey, Chico's the closest.
It's so funny that Chico's the closest, several hours away, and they actually brought Chico PD.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, wild.
That's
and yeah, what Jersey's saying about how it's extremely isolated, it's very that honestly has to do with the accessibility that people were asking about. It's very hard to get medical care and I guess have those resources, because so like, for example, if you have Kaiser, the closest like Kaiser clinic is in like Sacramento or something crazy like that.
Wow.
Like certain insurance isn't taken here. There's like one little hospital in like Mad River that has like maybe like 2 rooms. Oh,
He's been being
I had to stop to see the cat.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. I just when he's being so cute, I have to make sure. Eventually, I'll get a dedicated cat cam, because he's being extremely sweet and supportive.
Yeah, he hasn't been causing any problems either.
No, it's this new desk. Before we stop, it's totally off topic. Before we stop, this new desk setup. We're gonna talk about that before we end, but obviously not as important. But yeah, I think that's a really good segue into talking about being disabled and being active. I know that's true for me. I was able to go into town one time, and I actually had a ton of KN95s that I was able to donate. But yeah, my energy levels have not really permitted me to do more, which is why I've focused on doing stuff for this stream. And there's a lot of ways that that people can help that don't involve the physical, being on the ground, being on the front lines. And it sounds, Stinger, it sounds like that was a big part of what you did as well.
Yeah, I was on the ground for a brief amount of time. but I have chronic pain, so I did have to go home.
Yeah.
But there have been ways that, you know, I am still able to help. Like, I have been like writing things and releasing like media statements as well. We're actually separated into three. Oh, bye, Jersey.
Thank you so
Bye,
much
Jersey.
for
Thank you for being here.
and connecting us. This has been absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Everybody go follow Jersey if you haven't
On
already.
Instagram, TikTok, all the things. Yes. Long live the student intifada.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was one. So there were issues about, you know, pain and things like that, but we have like groups for who's responsible for like media stuff. Not super strict groups, but you know, like, oh, a couple people should work on writing this statement, and some of us will be like, okay, I'm on it then. And then it's just as easy as that. And that's something that's really helpful for students who aren't able to be there physically. Our campus is also a very inaccessible campus. We've actually had just recently, we actually had a student who has a power wheelchair actually sue the school in a civil lawsuit about that. I definitely get that it's hard to accept that you can't be on the ground. It's really it could definitely be really depressing. And then like feeling useless and feeling like you're not contributing enough to the movement. I think all my peers that I've been working with have been extremely supportive of what I'm contributing, whether or not I'm able to be on the ground, whether or not I'm able to crank out 20 statements a day. And every time I'm like, man, am I actually doing anything to help? I'm always getting like reassured.
Oh my God.
Who knows? And
Stinger has done so much.
I mean, you really do need somebody in there who's like the mission control. Like for a lot of the actions I've been able to be a part of, if you're doing anything that isn't like you have approval from the state to do it, you have a permit, then you need a bunch of people in like private encrypted chats updating people on, okay, here's what's happening now. Here's where you need to go. Here's where people are going to be. Like, here's the timing. Like, even just updates that I get, like when a campus needs people to show up, like there's Zionist counter protesters, everybody needs to get to Northwestern right now, or like the cops are moving on to Paul. Like I'm getting these messages around the clock. There are people who are working on this stuff from home who they're the most plugged in to be able to do that stuff, because if you're on the ground like fighting this stuff off, you can't like compose a statement or whatever. Like
You
it's
can't
so
tweet.
yeah. Yeah, it's so needed to have people who are like compiling that information and getting the messaging out.
I think Quarian 8 also had concerns about being autistic on the ground, and I'm also autistic, and those around me have been, even if I'm not disclosing my, I guess, diagnosis, they are in general a big part of just these kind of movements is like community support with each other. Being a part of the community in general is providing a lot of support, I guess, like supporting each other, even if you don't explicitly say like, oh, I have a really hard time about this. I don't even have to say that, because a huge part of just being successful is that we care about each other. And I'm really happy about seeing all the masks too. That's like a big part of it. Like, yes, it's also for like identity reasons, but it's still really nice to see.
Yeah.
Because we care about each other. If we wouldn't be in this if we didn't care about each other.
Another part of that, if I can add on, I'm also disabled and neurodivergent and a single mom. And one of the things I really appreciated was the encouragement of my peers to name my limitations and name what I needed for support, and really celebrating when we say no
Hmm.
to things. And I think, if there's anything that we can share, like just bringing that attitude into your organizing, I think would serve us well in any capacity, just to be like, hey, what do you need? Okay, dope. You know what you need. We trust that you know what you need, and we honor that.
Yeah, that's the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that we talk about a lot about on here, even outside of the context of protest and resistance and stuff, as being so important, and things that we're trying to promote and also encourage in ourselves. And so it's really great that to hear from y'all that the community around the protests that y'all have been involved in has been really good in that way.
I saw a lot of messages in the chat from people about kind of experiencing things like panic attacks or social anxiety, or feeling, again, because of just anti-autistic discrimination, having this constant feeling of like not belonging, and those being big barriers. From what I've witnessed, the work that y'all are doing at Cal Poly Humboldt, a lot of other campuses, the campuses I've gotten to visit, and the messages that I'm getting throughout throughout Chicago, there's always more that we could be doing to make these spaces more accessible, but I have seen a really incredible amount of accessibility mindedness. Like the med tents are handing out earplugs, everybody is being handed out masks, because it is, I think, pretty broadly understood and continues to need to be hammered home. As we've already said, masking protects yourself, it protects everyone in your community, it's good infosec.
Yes.
It's useful if the cops pepper spray you. It's just on message, it's on goals, tactically, for a lot of reasons for people to do that. If you haven't been to one of these encampments yet, then you probably are getting a lot of images of when the cops are cracking down on things that can make it seem really scary and like it's not for you. But part of why these things don't happen when they don't happen is because there's so many people there. When we're there in our numbers, most of the time it is incredibly chill. People
Yes.
dancing, educating one another, sharing food. When I kind of was able to shoot up quickly to Northwestern because they were having Zionist counter protesters, by the time I already got there, in 15 minutes, it had already become not a violent affair by any means. And Zionist counter protesters were just kind of standing glumly on the edge of the lawn. And everyone there, hundreds of people, were all linked arms surrounding the camp, community members protecting it. And I'm somebody who gets very like dissociated in public, or if things are moving quickly too. You don't necessarily have to be a fighter to be a presence there in whatever ways are comfortable and safe for you. Like there are lots of barriers. Not everybody's trying to sleep on a tent. I get that.
Yep.
And not everybody has to contribute in a way that's physically there. But also, if you're curious, I think it is worth checking it out. And even just being there, even if you just stand around for an hour and
Oh
you
my
don't
God,
talk to anybody,
absolutely.
that still makes a huge difference and is meaningful in whatever way you show up. It doesn't have to be physically, but also just physically showing up is also powerful too.
And it's so bolstering for those who are there the entire time, like just to see fresh faces and fresh energy and know that you're not alone. I think I slept at home every night because of my disability and also my responsibilities with my kids. And it was cool to go back every morning kind of fresh and be like, what do y'all need?
Yeah.
I'm here.
we can't all be Jersey. We can't all, just dedicate our lives to the cause for however many lives, but and we can support the Jerseys of this movement so that, they could do it, because they need a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get out there. It's really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So moving to be a part of this.
And in the chat, people were mentioning bringing a buddy. Definitely. Yeah, as much as is possible, you want to have a buddy. You want to have an affinity group, as we say in the anarchist scene, because you don't want to leave alone because you don't want to get arrested. It just makes it a lot easier to have somebody watching your back. Again, 99 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be fine. But having the numbers does help. protect
Yeah.
against that too, and just people knowing where you are.
Cool. Transpeak's coolest part of our camps to me has been seeing what a student-led campus could look like. Free food, free housing, entertainment, peer-to-peer teaching, tutoring. Colleges should be communities, not just places to get a piece of paper.
Yes.
So true. And that's part of the movement work, I think, like, is just getting to experience being in community with people in these ways helps make us stronger for, when we actually overthrow the government in
Yes.
3 months, right? We're going to all do that in 3 months, right? We're all ready for that.
I'm down.
Okay.
I keep
Yeah.
hearing late stage capitalism. How late
late
are
is
we?
So what I'm hearing is that the issue is capitalism. That's all I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corian said, I want to visit an encampment, but I think I need a protest buddy, someone who I actually know who could look out for me if I freeze or shut down. Yeah, I think that
Definitely.
I think a lot of what I'm seeing in the chat is people that are expressing like having difficulty getting connected. Because it is, I know it is hard, especially for people like, in our community that to get involved. And I think that organizing with people you already know could be a great way to start. Who do you know that is physically near you that could help make, maybe there's somebody that's near you who's not disabled, who isn't going to these protests that you could get to go with you, and then you're not only, you're not only getting help to get to them, but you're also bringing in another person. That kind of stuff is a really good way to start that.
Yeah. And there are wheelchair users at these things. There are children at these things. There's families, there's elders. These are incredibly diverse spaces. And that also does help in a lot of ways to strengthen it, even though, again, there's always more we need to do to make things more accessible.
Yes, I agree with what Corian's saying. It is a chance. It is a very good opportunity for you to practice asking for what you need from your community, because if anyone is going to help, it is the people you will be with in this community for the movement. Because if these people didn't have compassion for others, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a good way to start practicing. I need a community with to support me, because it takes a village and I know that it takes a village is usually like 4 children, but I think it applies to everyone.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. And asking for that help helps build community. Like, you're doing the community a favor when you do that. You're not being a drain on it. You're making it.
Yeah. Mutual aid is not only giving. Like, I think that people talk about mutual aid a lot, and I think that but I think that there can be like, people can miss, like, oh yeah, that means you have to ask for help too. Like, you can't.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, legitimately, I think about, I think about the Black Panthers a lot when I think about, like, we're joking about ending, tearing down the U.S. state and when the revolution comes, but like, I really think about that a lot when I think about what does that look like. And to me, it looks like coming together and replacing the state. The state's job is to take care of us, right? We all pay into this system in so many different ways, not just taxes, and in so many myriad ways. And the deal is that we are also taken care of by the state, and that's not happening. It's the state and like capitalism actively are leeching from us in every single way possible. And so the way that we are going to have to come together is just to take care of ourselves and take care of our neighbors and take care of each other. And that's how we start that, in my opinion. That's how we do the revolution, is by, once people don't need to, realize that they're helping each other more than the state is helping them, they don't need the state anymore. And the revolution could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of amazing just how much just like food and clothing and everything that I saw just get amassed at these campuses
Yeah.
in a matter of like hours.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yep.
if we're all doing this with our $20 that we're passing from one GoFundMe to the next over and over again, where the fuck's my tax money? Like, imagine what we could do
Right?
if we still had our tax money,
Yeah.
or have we had any say in where it went.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There,
I think I've left this, or I can't say left. At this point, I think I've been reminded of our capabilities as individuals and as collectives. Just really how capable we are to organize, how capable we are to take care of each other, how capable we are to think critically, and to incite joy and look after each other's health and consider each other's needs. We are so isolated generally.
yeah.
And I feel so capable right now, as a community member.
Yeah, that empowerment. What advice do y'all have for other campus organizers right now?
Yeah.
As you're seeing it go so many different ways all across the country, what lessons are we learning, and what do we need to avoid?
Whew.
Big. Give us a tactical step by step.
So how do we win the war? How do we do the revolution?
I mean, I think we need to stay fluid. Like we just need, like it's going to be a moving target, and we saw that here, and I'm seeing that in other places. You need to stay fluid. I think giving up on a sense of perfectionism is really, really essential in activism, because we're responding, we're dreaming, and we're not going to get it right every time. And so being willing to try things and then adjust, I think, is such an important skill set for us to have. And that includes people. I think that really includes people, because we're going to continuously be confronted with a group of people that we don't know necessarily, that have diverse backgrounds, that are various places when it comes to their own understanding of the situation, various needs physically and emotionally. And I think, there's a real balance between accountability and being firm, in our morals and in our standards, being principled in what we're looking for, and also holding space for people to grow, because people are showing up messy. And I think it's important to remember that people are messy, and that within community we're able to expand our horizons of our understanding of the world and of ourselves. So yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway right now, is be willing to be flexible.
I love that.
Bend and move as things bend and move. It's what we have to do as humans anyway in this crazy society. And we just need to apply that in a collective way. And I know, we're learning a lot as a community, as a little community here, what it takes to organize, on bigger scales than I think we have in the past. And yeah, the take home message is community and be flexible.
I think about that I think maybe I've seen this sentiment multiple times, but that sentiment that's like that person that is, I'm not going to quote it quite right. Devon, maybe you know what I'm talking about, where it's like the person that like is affirming but uses a slur is probably a better ally than the person that is like policing like what gender you can identify, like what sexuality you can identify with or whatever. Like, yeah, I love that idea of like really being empathetic to them, being accepting of everyone no matter where they're at.
We have a lot of folks who are just getting radicalized right now, like this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's an important, hopeful thing to keep in mind too. Like, as Jersey was saying in the chat, like pro-Palestinian work has been so marginalized for so long and so
Yeah.
silenced.
Yeah.
We're coming a really long way in terms of the amount of people in this country who are willing to take a stand. And that means there's growing pains.
Leftism in general. I mean, they killed them all.
Yeah.
You know, like all
Right.
the leftist organizers, all the like, you know, radical Black Power people, all that stuff. They're dead. We don't have that history because it was
Right.
actively destroyed, and
Right. Arrested and yeah.
Yep.
Stinger, did you have any advice for other campuses?
An important thing is remembering what your goal is and remembering who you're fighting for and who you're trying to support. You can tie other conflicts and other movements into what you are focused on without losing that focus,
Right.
if that makes sense. The movements aren't separate, but you can also have a focus within those movements. I was thinking about it, and then the second you guys asked, I was like, never mind.
It's okay. I think that's a really great advice. I mean, you know, Palestinians are the one undergoing a genocide, and it's really important to not forget that. And it seems like I think hopefully it seems like people are doing a really good job doing that, but it's really important to not, you know, not lose focus on it.
Okay, I remember what I was gonna say. I think a big thing is try to avoid like the paranoia that comes with oh, there's an outside agitator, oh, there's like someone we don't know, because that is alienating each other and the community. That's something we really tried to do in our movement, is not, I guess, speculate on like who's a Fed, who's like who's an undercover cop, like, oh, you're suspicious, unless we actively saw them like doing something that I guess endangered the rest of us. Like there were 2 guys going around on campus taking pictures of people, like, and then like joking about how they were gonna like send it to the police and shit like that. Like that's an obvious person trying to hurt us, right? But when we're all together in this space, it isn't the time to be like, oh, well, you're acting like a Fed right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I suspect that you're a Fed. Like, it's not helpful, and that's how movements fall apart.
Yeah. And it's intentional. I mean, I'm again thinking about the things I've learned about the 60s, of where they would like FBI would like make documents on like resistance leaders and send them to like other people, like, you know, in the resistance.
Oh, like demonizing them to other organizers and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's I could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's part of what led to that issue within the American Indian movement with Naguset East. That was one of the reasons, was because they thought that she was an undercover Fed, I believe. That was like part of the conflict between her and other members. Numerous of her supporters and her daughters believed that higher level AIM officials ordered her murder because they feared she was an FBI informant.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that leads to that kind of intra-movement conflict.
Yeah.
So we really try to avoid that.
Yeah, there's such a difference between having a disagreement about, like, I don't think this is the right tactic, or we can discuss this privately, versus smearing someone's character and fomenting conflict.
And then The police work really hard. The police and the administration, administrators worked really hard to seed paranoia in us, with a lot of, pretty consistent threats of police presence, or increasing threats of punishment, spreading rumors that we had been taken over by, random community people who were just there to fight the cops. And it really took a lot of concerted effort for us to be like, no, no,
Mhm.
we're here together and we'll have those conversations and really try to push back and refuse to be scared, to be made afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's easy to get so I feel like that is the like problem du jour like on and online leftist movements too. It's like so it's good to remember it's like I don't know. It's good to just if you could get on the ground and remember that everybody's just people and we don't need to have these fights. This is totally random, but I was thinking about how I feel like we've talked a little bit of shit about Hassan on this show, and critical support to Hassan. I'm proud of him being the way he's been standing, like really consistently been standing up from the little that I know about what he's doing. So
Yeah, I think on the whole, it's making more people aware, even if he's like a bro YouTube streamer. D-bag sometimes.
Yeah. But anyway, that was not relevant to anything.
Yeah. Well, anything that moves people farther along the pipeline
Right.
is good.
Right.
You know? Yeah. We don't all have to be doing the exact same role in this struggle. And that's something that the April 15th kind of economic blockades all across the country, one of the shared agreements for that was we're not going to criticize each other in public. Other cities might have different types of economic blockades. Some people are blocking roads, some people are blocking bridges, some people are smashing in weapons manufacturers' buildings, windows or whatever. They're all fighting on slightly different territory, and it's autonomous and with a shared goal, but we're not going to attack each other in that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a smart policy to have.
I saw that reflected really profoundly in our encampment also, that same attitude.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think it made a huge difference for us.
It's been as we're talking more about the wider movement. I had this image that was really inspiring. This is from just a couple days ago, so it's probably this is already out of date, but this is 120 universities where encampments have sprung up, which is just really, really cool to see. And then also there was this image that all 7 continents have student Gaza solidarity protests because there was
awesome.
there was one on Antarctic Research Station.
Hell
Oh my god, I saw it and I was so excited. I was like, this is the best thing.
Yeah, just fucking badass. So, this is this is huge.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, only 2 have dropped off the list. Northwestern and Brown, I believe, have cut deals with campus administration. And the Northwestern one was pretty disappointing, NGL. They basically just kind of 18 people who we don't know who they even are just voted on some proposal from campus administration that basically amounted to, we're going to give Muslim Student Association clubs more money, and we might publish our financials sometime in the fall.
Yeah, which is it's shocking more universities haven't done that kind of shit, like where it's like it's shocking more universities haven't even been able to be like, well, let's build do the we're gonna have within 6 months. In 6 months, we're gonna form a committee to decide about this.
To research the thing. I'm sure a lot of them have proposed it, and students have been like, "We're not.
Yeah,
We're not leaving until you
We're not
actually
that-
do the thing.
We're not that dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Gavin said Emerson's is also gone after it got raided. Not sure if it will come back, but they're supporting other encampments. Yeah, that's true. There's been raids, and yeah, those are. I think that I feel like I see that as more of just like a. That's not a failure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interruption. Yeah, it's a tactical like regrouping. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it sucks. It fucking sucks to see.
Yeah. The amount of imagining the amount of money that has been spent on cops overtime and
Oh my God,
rubber
right?
bullets and could fucking fund a lot of shit with that.
Yeah, most of these
Yeah.
students' tuition at least.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Some information just dropped for us over here that our graduation is not canceled, but it's been relocated off of campus to a couple different locations. And one of the locations they just announced is also where they housed the riot police.
Wow.
Oh.
Which just feels extra special to me right now in this moment.
Yeah.
That's where our graduation is going to be held.
Jeez.
That feels very pointed, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. Oof.
It is a great opportunity, actually. But of course, I didn't say
Wink,
that.
wink.
No, yeah.
I said nothing. I have plausible deniability.
No idea
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you already know what to expect, like, oh, that's where they're
Yeah.
sending us then,
Yeah, it's been insulting from the beginning. It's very frustrating. But I know faculty is calling for an independent investigation of how this was handled. Part of that is looking at, how much law enforcement did cost, because they bussed police
Yeah.
here from neighboring counties and all the way to San Francisco. We had well over 200 police come and arrest a couple of dozen students at 3 a.m. So it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm glad faculty are organizing too.
Yeah.
I'm pushing for that.
Yeah,
They're pretty involved.
I don't think I saved any of the images, but some of the images from places where encampments have been cleared out are so depressing, that because they're, the beauty of the encampments we've described, sharing food and solidarity and dance and teaching, and then they leave, they come in and they leave behind ripped tents and just everything is destroyed. I saw somebody else say this, and it was a thought that I had that was like, man, these are a lot of tents, and that's a lot of, I know the org that organizes around here that gives tents to people. I really hope that they can get a hold of those tents at the end. And it's like, yeah. And then cops, of course, specifically destroyed all that stuff. And, again, it just goes into the way in which the violence that happened was from the most prominently from the police, when it wasn't from the counter protesters.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, out of some of the New York universities that had the cops come down on them, those cops are like destroying university property too. They're just throwing around furniture and stuff with complete contempt too. So it's very funny, for trying to protect campus property or whatever. They obviously don't give a shit about these places either.
Yeah. It's very much again, in so many of these things, the way in which we enforce the law is not the idea that it is enforced like the same on everybody is a lie. And it is and that is the central lie of the way that especially like the kind of like liberal establishment has been talking about this, is like, well, we have to enforce the law the same for everybody, and it's like so untrue. Alec Karakatsanis, I highly recommend following this guy. He talks a lot about basically police collaboration with media, and posts a lot about just that when that thing of when cops press releases are like posted in newspapers just without any criticism. But he said police slashing these tents is a federal felony crime and a state felony property crime. We see this a lot in their treatment of unhoused people in city after city, but quote, law enforcement only enforces some laws against some people. And it's so true. Like not only on a moral level of these so much violence is happening at these encampments, but only from the police, but also even just from a legal perspective, that so much that like you were describing about having reverence for the place, the police do not have that, and so much property has been destroyed by the police, and yet all of that destruction and violence is put on and reported on as because of the protests. It's really upsetting to see.
Definitely brings into question like who has to respect property.
Right. Right.
Who gets to have property.
Right.
All right. Thank you for being here, Stinger. Thank you for spending so much time talking with us and for all of your great work in the movement. It's been so awesome to have you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys as well for the opportunity. Everyone stay safe. People in the chat, stay safe.
You too.
I love you guys. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Yeah, I had a couple pictures that I've seen of people in Gaza thanking protesters.
But yeah, I was just saying I saw people in Gaza specifically calling out Cal Poly Humboldt and thanking them in particular for their steadfastness, which is incredible.
There was a lot of tears around that picture.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
It's just seeing people. I don't have words for being in that situation, and so much. I think I saw somebody describing that. Somebody who was in Gaza describing like I can't imagine coming back to humanity after this happened to us, and no one seems to care, and no one and so stuff like this giving that person hope that people actually are seeing this is
huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And the amount of solidarity that the Palestinian people show to every other struggle, like I can't remember what black activist out of Flint it was that came before all of this, obviously, to the Gaza Strip to meet with people, and they were saying that organizers there were like, how can we help with the water crisis? Like they were just offering to do whatever they could. Giving every last thing that you have for your people in your community. It's just incredible.
I saw somebody say that it's been 10 years since Palestinians were on Twitter telling Ferguson rioters how to deal with tear gas. Tear gas that's the same tear gas, it's made by the same manufacturers, that were police use against us, and they're using against Palestinians. And that's what we can do here, is to at least try to make it harder for those supplies to get over there. So there was I'm not sure what we've talked about. A lot of really cool stuff. I want to make sure we get to anything. There's a lot to talk about, so I want to make sure we get to anything that there was just a few things that I had that really blew my mind, just random things. one of the first things was out of Columbia. There was this an article from John McWhorter, music teacher. Last Thursday in the music humanities class I teach at Columbia University, 2 students were giving an in-class presentation on the composer John Cage. His most famous piece is 4 minutes and 33 seconds, which directs us to listen in silence to surrounding noise for exactly that period of time. I had to tell the students we could not listen to that piece that afternoon because the surrounding noise would have not been birds or people walking by in the hallway, but infuriated chanting from protesters outside the building. Lately, that noise has been almost continuous during the day and into the evening. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh my God. Way to miss the point.
Oh, Jesus.
Jesus.
For anyone who doesn't know, 433 is literally about it is a piece of music that it just has like 4 minutes and 33 seconds of rests. And as he says, you are supposed to listen to what is around you. And the point is not to hear birds. The point is not to hear something specific. It is to fucking hear what is around you. And there is no better lesson of what is around us. What should we be fucking listening to right now? But the chance of people demanding an end to fucking genocide. And you gave that like literally, there is no better lesson. There's no better fucking time to teach that lesson. And somebody quote retweeted it with this really this moving piece that I had heard from Marwan Makul. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is a thing I've heard in other times. In order for me to write poetry that isn't political, I must listen to the birds, and in order to hear the birds, the warplanes must be silent. Like, this is not peace. This is like this is the MLK's quote about the fucking white liberal. Like, the absence of these fucking protests is not peaceful. And we are just making noise to make people fucking aware of the lack of peace. And this is just such a good fucking little like just metaphor for that whole fucking thing. Was just
for real. It's like a willful refusal to hear.
Yes.
Yes. Truly such a missed opportunity. I mean, like what? Like as an educator, like what an opportunity.
What a failure of education. Like my dog, you had the best opportunity to use this fucking lecture session and you just whiffed it.
But no, you're not hearing. I need you to hear the things I want you to hear. Like, that's the whole point, motherfucker.
So it's very like Zone of Interest, because that movie is all about, like using sound to illustrate the horrors of the Holocaust happening just outside your window while you're sunbathing or whatever. But you know, heaven forbid you hear anything that's gonna unsettle you.
Yes.
For even a second.
It's not
the lack of decorum is the real problem.
Yes. Yes. That's why. Yes. So anyway, I wanted
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that was probably the most fucking on the nose thing that I have fucking seen. Pixel Therapy Pod, that reminds me of, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its mighty waters. Frederick Douglass. That is beautiful. Absolutely on point.
Yeah.
Gav says, that sounds like a typical classical musician speaking as a classical musician. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, just that we didn't have this. Okay, so this apparently was a couple months ago, but Q, I'd be so curious to know if you if y'all did any of this, because this shit was so fucking funny. So this is from a couple months ago. I'm not sure the context of this protest. I'm assuming it's pro-Palestinian, or people in Kefias. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to play at least some part of this with just. So this. So there's this fucking guy in the glasses. Big man on campus.
Mhm.
Allegations were Alice. Let's look you up.
Oh, that's right.
And then they decide,
saw
let's look
about
this
this.
motherfucker up.
Yeah.
Morales was echoing your 5 allegations and $600,000.
They looked up the allegations against them.
Settlements this time. 5 allegations, all 5 landed in settlements. $600,000.
And then look at this fucking guy.
You raised Jay Morales over $600,000 in lawsuits.
Oh my god.
Literally the
Literally pulling out his collar. Ooh, what's hot in here? This heat. I was not expecting to catch this heat today.
I just had to. There wasn't a place to put it in the larger discussion, but I had to point this out because that shit. He literally doesn't. He's like, "Come on, knock me out," and then.
Oh my god. Yeah. I heard about this because it was during a live stream, but I did not see it.
No, okay, so actually that's why this got. So this was a couple months ago, but apparently they were doing this like CCNY Campus Magazine live stream. They were doing that to people. So I would love to. So this was this was from a couple months ago where just a good example of the tactic. But I'd love to see that those clips from actually during these protests.
Right. I just don't think you can play with millennials and Gen Zs who are protesting right now because, like, we know how to find the receipts. Like, we know how to use our phones. We know how to communicate. And we also know how to play a little bit and be a little unserious at the same time.
Zoomers are so irreverent in a way that I admire so much in these moments.
Oh my God. Yes.
Like, they are always operating on multiple different levels of perception. Like, like the commentary about the thing, the awareness of how things play on social media. It's like you can't escape once they've got you.
Just gonna leave that.
Little collar pull. Gosh.
Yeah, that's so freaking good.
I mean, I think that speaks to one of the reasons why I think like the location of the university right now is really unique. Like I, as a student myself, I study critical theory and was actually teaching a class this semester on resistance movements, and it was really interesting to have dialogue around like the location of the college campus itself, because you can't say that they're not educated, literally.
Yeah.
They're adults, so you got to take them seriously, but they're also young adults, and so people are moved to want to protect them.
Right.
It's such an interesting location for resistance itself. And then especially once you get like the tech savviness and the humor involved, I mean, we are going to be living on these memes for years to come.
I know there's got to be so much shit that like people haven't even posted yet, or shit that like got posted but didn't get wider distribution that we're gonna see. Oh,
they have 1 gallon versions, y'all. Just so you know, little pocket size.
Small bonk. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, that's not the video game one, but yeah.
Oh, I love that this has some fun.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's amazing. Oh my
Aw.
god.
But yeah, there's so much about the nature of the college campus, and as you were saying, Q, college students just as leaders of a movement where, they're young and scrappy. They're both smart, capable adults, and there's sympathy. And then the college campus is this opportunity
Yes.
in a lot of people's lives where they are in a walkable community where they're
Yeah.
interacting with lots of other people every day, like the way that the world should be. Like
Yes.
that's part of the appeal of the college campus, is the ability to have all of those close-knit connections. You live and eat and work with people, and do your laundry with people, and make new friends, and have access to clubs and gyms and all kinds of things. And like that just gives so much more potential. And that's
Yeah.
why, alienation under capitalism is so counter-revolutionary. It does such a good job of stifling us
Yes.
because we are so
Yeah.
Yes.
alienated. But if we can flip that up on its head and form these kinds of encampments in a lot of different public spaces and really pool our
Yes.
resources and
New
build those
Orleans.
connections again. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the parks
I'm
there.
so excited for summer break. Like, what's gonna happen? I don't know,
Yes.
but
I hope this
suddenly we're all
energy
out of school.
keeps going and just expands beyond the campus. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and I really loved to see the stuff that was happening on Emory campus in Atlanta, where they've been fighting Cop City for God. I know that that probably predates the 2020 stuff. I imagine. I know that it got big during that, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's beautiful to see that people like finding these places and ways to put pressure on the establishment and get what we need and deserve.
Yeah. I spoke with Emory last week, some students from Emory. That's another thing that I've not seen talked about, but we're networking with each other across campuses. Like,
Yeah.
organizers are reaching out to other campuses and saying, "Hey, what did you do? We have a question. How did you get that resource? Where did you find that training? We have a question about morale or whatever." There's so much sharing that's happening right now, which, is like the joy of technology, even though we're dealing with like increased surveillance and lots of
Yeah.
fear around that as well. But Emory had, like, our conversation was just so incredible. I was so impressed with them and their drive to be really like people centered and really connect those two issues together. Um,
Yeah.
and their willingness to like reach out and build relationships with other organizers from like within their city and then across the nation to be able to like show up in a way that's like safe and protective for them, but then also just like really rooted in their demands and in the focus, which was again on Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the Stop Cop City protesters who first started kettling the cops in the woods. They were really
Mm.
just figuring out some of the big tactics for how to lead them
Yeah.
around into their own little dead ends and things like that, and then spread that knowledge. So
Ugh.
yeah, it's like we all have these separate little war rooms, and we're like giving each other like
Yeah.
dispatches from the battlefield about try this, use
They're-
this thing.
They want us
Yeah, well,
to.
go ahead.
They want us to be separated. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I think that's one of the we're seeing our police forces really becoming like a militarized national force. They're using the same tactics and they have the advantage of communication. But I think that's also the disadvantage is we know their playbook.
Mhm.
The way that we respond up here in rural Northern California is going to be very similar to the way that someone responds in Georgia, because the police are using the same tactics. And so the more we can communicate, I think the better off we're all going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Abby Nitz, for subscribing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, the pooling of knowledge and just the development of tactics has been so seriously inspiring, and I shouldn't say I'm excited for what happens next, but I'm I'm ready.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
hopeful.
it's a weird hope to see.
It's a weird hope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's because it's like I was saying, it's not that it was peaceful before. It just
right.
wasn't visible to us, and so it's exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting to see that
Yeah. We talked a lot about an Audre Lorde quote from a poem of hers. I think it's the New Year's Day poem, um, where the final lines are, "I am deliberate and afraid of nothing." And we talked a lot about how we're showing up deliberately. How are we being deliberate right now? And how is that reflecting this hope for the future, which is really how we interpreted that final line of like, and I'm afraid of nothing, because that deliberateness and community was giving us this hope for the future. So it is scary still, and
yeah
Hmm.
I think it's scary to have hope right now. But I think as activists, we fundamentally sort of come from a place of hope. We do what we're doing because we believe that something else is possible. And this like deliberateness that we're exerting right now mobilizes us in a way that makes us not feel disempowered. We don't
Yeah.
feel like we're incapable. Like I said earlier, I feel very capable, and it directly comes from that deliberateness. Like we're doing things.
Hmm.
yeah
Yeah. The Palestinian concept of like steadfast struggle has been
Yes.
so empowering for me to learn more about this idea that it's kind of the opposite of that authoritarian fear, right? Of like, or the white supremacist fear of like conflict or anything. I'm knowing that things are going to happen, but that together we're resilient in fighting it, and not and something bad happening, some conflict happening not being the worst thing in the world. We're already in it. It's accepting the reality that we're in and saying,
Yes.
okay, let's fucking go.
yeah
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we're coming up on our time. uh um Q, I know you can't shout out your own stuff, but
I wish I could. Maybe someday.
yeah, you'll have
Yeah.
to come. You'll have to come back as a different in a mustache.
Mask off. Yeah. Right. With your voice and a mustache.
But
I would love that.
where can people find more information? I was wondering if there is like a social media that where y'all are putting out updates
Yeah.
about the encampment.
We have the Occupy Cal Poly Humboldt on Instagram is a good place to find us. We're, again, like I said, we're still getting reorganized, but that is our primary social media at the moment.
Occupy
Perfect.
Cal Poly Humboldt, right? Mm-hmm.
And then Jersey Noah is, their alumni. Bless Jersey. And so a lot of what they're sharing also on their page is news and updates from what's going on here.
Jersey Noah's page again at jersey.noah, and that's at Occupy Cal Poly Humboldt on Instagram. Well, thank you so much. This has been a really cool and beautiful conversation, and I'm really honored to have had both of y'all with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for spreading the word.
Yes.
Yeah. If anyone here is new, you can check us out in some of these places. Join the Piscord. We are always doing shit in the Piscord on Discord. Maybe sharing some more. I saw at least one person wanted to share some
safety tips and things
safety
like that.
tips.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
I'd love to see more of that in there. Mal Banshee, this was really good way to spend a Friday. Felt energizing. I absolutely agree. This stuff feels, to me too, this stuff feels so energizing, because so much of reading about things, you know, can be so upsetting. So I'm glad that this was.
Yeah, this was definitely the shot in the arm after seeing some losses and crackdowns and stuff like that. You know, you got to dust yourself back up and remember that you're not alone in this stuff and that it's not over.
I'm gonna duck out. I have another meeting I have to get to.
Thank you so much for sticking with us.
Thank you so much for being here, Q.
Thank you.
So appreciated. Bye.
Thank you so much. Good luck out there.
Yes. Thank you. You too. Bye. All right. I think we're ready to raid. Thank you everybody so much for hanging out.
Thanks for being here. See y'all next week.
Yeah. Catch you on the flip.
Bye.